can put that in the podcast. We're not starting yet. I have to do an official intro.
Oh, I actually want to talk to you. Okay. Remind me about your over 30 league.
Can I just do the intro for God's sakes?
Oh, you play with Jonah?
No, by some.
All right, start us off and we'll get this shit on
ladies
camera.
and gentlemen, we've been here. The podcast was supposed to start at 7 p.m.
6.
Started at
7.
6, then I pushed us to 7.
Because he said he was going to get here at 7.
Yeah.
He didn't get here at 7.
It is 11:15 at night, and we're barely getting started.
Guys, I just want to say, this is Javi's house. I was here before anybody else.
It's true. Georgie was babysitting my
kids. Georgie's been babysitting. Her first he babysat your kids, and now he's been babysitting us for the last
these
4
hours. So first of all, before we get started with anything, got to remind the people, they got to follow us on the TikTok, the Instagram, the YouTube is where we put the actual video, and then Spotify if you're just listening on your commute. And you want to listen to it through Spotify, you can listen to it there. The Instagram and the TikTok are at the NGW podcast. Go ahead and make sure you follow us because we're trying to make it big. We're trying to all eventually live in big mansions and have a studio that we can actually fit in and not be super crammed up in. So help us get there.
Georgie and I are very close right now.
Speaking of that, as you can see, another new setup. We're just I got an idea. Every podcast from now on has to have a different setup.
I've watched this setup for the past 5 hours.
I enjoy putting this, like moving stuff around. That's like one of my favorite parts of like moving the lights and the cameras and everything. And I enjoy that process. I know you guys probably don't because you guys are here waiting 5 hours before we can get started while I do it.
Sometimes it's not bad. But.
So, okay. Well, are you going to tell people you got a new couch?
Yeah, we got a new couch. Georgie, again, putting in work today, picked it up.
No, it's not about that.
Babysit my
Georgie's had a really busy day.
Not about that. Is it comfortable?
Georgie's fallen asleep 3 times before this.
Is it comfortable?
It's very comfortable, yes.
Yeah. Way
and
better
I'm sure
than
that chair is quite comfortable as well. The Jon Snow chair. I figured I'd give it to you, Georgie.
I appreciate that. I feel very...
All right, well, before we move any further, let's introduce the other hosts. Obviously, you guys know me, Coach Javi. The statistics, man, Joe D. Give us the update every week. Update on the statistics.
Statistics continue to trend in the right direction. If you are on TikTok, please go to the NGW podcast. We have a quiz out there for you, which is becoming very popular. The analytics are the needle is going off the charts. Looking at that and how many views it has right now. So see if you can be smarter than Georgie, because I actually got the answer right.
I knew the answer. That's why I didn't answer. I saw people in the comments saying, "Oh, you have."
Because I told you the answer, right? You were watching the game. You were watching the game.
Yeah.
All right, let's get this started with the most important part of this podcast, so people can immediately be excited about what they're listening to today. Georgie wants to tell us about his Sunday league game that had this indoor game.
Oh, you mentioned Jonah.
Oh yeah. Well, so over 30 at Toro Sakura Oak.
You can't give away our location. There's crazy people out there.
It's okay. Every Monday night I'll be there. Anyway, the Liverpool girls are playing on the field, and I see the Liverpool coach, and then they finish the training session. Then, whatever, like we have our games first, and I started talking to the coach, and I'm like, "Are you a Liverpool fan?" He's like, "Mate, you're not gonna like my answer." I was like, "Okay, Man United, no. Everton, no. Arsenal, no." I'm going through the list of the whole entire list. My man says Crystal Palace. I'm like, why would I not like that? Like, out of all the teams, why would I not like Crystal Palace? And then I said Jonah.
So that was your story?
That was my story.
That was the most disappointing story. I was expecting something that we could cut a clip of and go viral on TikTok. And you just gave us that.
So I thought what he was going to say was, so on Tuesday, it was either Tuesday night or Monday night, I got a text message from Alex Dubet, someone I've played with since I was like 10 years old.
Goalkeeper?
Yeah.
Oh.
He asked me to come join Georgie, and he goes, I play on Monday nights. Can you come help sub? Our team is trash. We have no one on our team that's any good.
Whoa.
And I said, anyone on the team that I know? And he said, George Shop.
He's like, no, they're all trash.
Let me see the text.
George has been trying to get me to play for this team forever.
I have.
You want to go? We should go.
They can't afford my wages.
He can't make it because he has training sessions. I would ask you, but you live far away.
I would go. So it's Royal Oak. My parents live right by there, so I can normally double dip it out. No, Alex texted me. I told him I'll go. I'll sub with you.
Bring the boys back. Get the boys back together.
Listen, I'm not going to comment. My team is really good, really nice people. Yeah.
If you talk, you are in trouble. If I speak, I'm in trouble.
We were in the second
How
division.
did you get hooked up with that team?
I knew a guy on the team, and he left the state. So now I'm stuck playing on the team. So
do you know Greg Martini?
I have no idea. I don't know anybody.
Listen, this isn't the podcast.
Never
Like,
mind.
do you
Back
know
to-
this guy? Do you know that guy? This is let's get into it. I told you every single time we do this, the intro gets longer and longer to the podcast. People are going to start. We're going to see in the Mr. Statistics, man, that people in the first minute are going to stop listening to the podcast. They're never going to get to the good stuff.
Maybe if you could cut it up so it's like they could skip past the
my
pre-cap.
team's
already up to
name,
4 in the morning
My team's
cutting
name
it.
is A B C D E F G.
Is it really? Unbelievable. All right, how far Georgie's fallen? Let's get into the pre-cap.
Let's get into the pre-cap.
Let's get into the pre-cap. The pre-cap is the recap of what we're going to talk about before we talk about it. That's why it's called the pre-cap. All right. Anyway, the pre-cap.
So what are we talking about? Because
Champions League.
I honestly have no
Champions
idea.
League is the big stuff for this week. So we got Arsenal absolutely dominating against Lens, 6-0. Havertz continues on a hot streak. PSG Newcastle 1-1 tie game. Some controversy with the VAR per usual. Man United versus Galatasaray 3-3 with some controversial goalkeeping. Maybe not controversial goalkeeping, awful goalkeeping is probably the better word. Man City comes back against Leipzig 3-2, second half comeback. And then, which Georgie was going to bet on that game and didn't. I should have bet on that game. Good odds.
There's
odds
a lot
to
of
come
things
back.
Georgie says he's going to bet on.
Yeah, he never
doesn't.
does.
He just
always,
a lot of talk.
I
huh?
should have.
Wait.
Hold on. We'll finish that.
We'll get back to your Cowboys in a
Real
little bit.
Real Madrid versus Napoli 4-2. Jude Bellingham once again, the Jude show. And then, per usual, we have the other segments of our show, which are conspiracy theories. We always got to make sure we have one or two conspiracy theories on the show.
There's always some.
There's always something going on.
Dun, 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 dun.
Laws of the game, which is where I try and beat you guys with some sort of a tricky rule. I don't know if I got a tricky one today, just some interesting ones.
So the score right now I think is you've won one and then
I've
we've
stumped
won
you guys
two.
once and you guys have won twice.
All right.
Yeah. And then we'll finish with some fun facts. Just
Those are
some
always fun.
interesting well, that's why they're called fun facts, George.
I know.
They're not
that's
called
the
boring
thing.
facts. All right? This guy's lost the plot.
I'm really
Georgie
excited
needs
to
a fourth nap today.
see what Georgie brings to the podcast today.
All right, so because Arsenal had probably the best performance overall of all of the Champions League teams, I'm going to hand it over to Joe D. Give us your thoughts on the 6-0 thrashing.
It was awesome to see. Kai Havertz starting off the scoring was also amazing. I was telling Georgie earlier, I think, Javi, when you were doing, I don't know, setting up or doing something, that it looks like he might be really coming into his own because he scored, 4 times, I think, now in all competitions between Arsenal and Germany over the past month or so. All started with that penalty that he took a few weeks back. But 6 goals, 6 different goal scorers. Got off to such an early lead. We were able to rest people like Rice, rest Saka. It was literally the best thing I think that could have happened, and I was super excited us to keep a clean sheet through that entire game as well. But now we're through to the round of 16, and I am very excited to watch some knockout
And top
Champions
of the group, right?
League.
Finish
Yes,
top of
and
the group.
guaranteed top of the group, which we can also rest some players, give some of the other players a run. But I'm excited for where we're headed, and we have Wolves this Saturday, and hopefully we can win that game, go 4 points clear, sit back the rest of the weekend, and enjoy being top of the table, baby.
So 2 things with that. One, the people want to know where you got your hat. Nothing to do with the Arsenal game, I guess, but I just thought about it. People want to know where you got your hat. Where'd you get your hat?
Do you want me to tell, because we're not sponsored by them yet?
We'll
Yeah.
allow it for this episode.
Lids, I think.
Lids?
Yeah, pretty sure I got. Do you want
Like
me to
online
show,
or one of those shops?
Yeah, online. Should I show the group?
Show the group. So,
We also have a new hat. If you think we should switch hats, you let me know. Throw it in the comments.
Joe got upset because I moved his hats. He put them on the couch, and then I slightly
This guy
moved them.
started
He's like,
touching
"Don't
my
touch my hat."
stuff, man.
Anyway, people liked your hat. A lot of people were like, "Oh, I would get that."
I did see those comments.
So I need to get a similar one with the Mexican national team.
I've
logo.
got one more coming that if you behave, I might give it to you for Christmas.
All right, look at that.
Yeah.
Are you a hats guy? You're a hats guy, huh?
When you don't have hair, you kind of have to be a hats guy, yeah.
Yeah, I knew the answer to that. I just wanted to hear it. All right, back to the Arsenal game. Obviously the important part of this whole thing is we had a conversation about your boy Kai and him. Is he really good enough to be in the starting 11? have his recent performances proven to you that you were what you because your answer was yes. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I for sure think he should continue to be in the starting 11 for a mixture of two things. Number one, I think he's progressing in the right direction, so I think he's earned that. Also, too, from a lack of options in that position, because if you think to other players that we could play in that role that really fit that box-to-box midfielder, there really aren't any unless you move Declan Rice there, and then you have to put someone else in as your number 6, either in Jorginho or Partey. The person I was hoping that could potentially grow into that role was Smith Rowe, but I haven't seen it from the limited time he has played. But maybe he'll get a start here over the next few weeks, especially with us being through in Champions League, and hopefully he does. And I think he would be a good combo there to rotate through, but I could see us going for someone else in the transfer window to fill that position. But as of right now, I'm liking Kai Havertz. He could have scored a few more goals. I think he also had an assist or two, so he's
he's doing well.
He's doing well.
Good.
He's doing well. Thank you, Chelsea.
I wouldn't go that far yet.
Oh yeah,
I wouldn't go that far yet. Georgie, what are your thoughts on what are Arsenal's realistic chances of winning the Champions League the way that they've been playing?
Honestly, I would say they're the second best team in the Champions League after Manchester City.
Wow. We're going to keep that on record, Georgie, because...
Can we get a round of applause sound effect for that?
I need to load up the sound effects, but Georgie typically doesn't give us that much credit, so I'm surprised.
Even over Real Madrid, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe we would have been the third if Liverpool was in the Champions League this year.
Oh, for sure.
We would have been the third.
This is strictly Champions League that I've seen. And to be fair, nothing in the group stages, you can't really judge anything off the group stages.
Agreed.
You have to just get through, and then just because of the gap, the last match day is in December, and then you start back up late February now, just because there's a 2-week break.
Sounds right.
At some point, I think, and there's just such a big gap. And then between that, you got to stay healthy. You got to still keep the momentum going. So I think I do think they're the second best team so far in the group stages. But that doesn't really mean anything.
Are you saying it's hard to tell just because there's such a big gap in
such a long time.
Quality that you're playing?
Yeah, it's such a long time. The quality is another thing. Obviously, as you progress from the group stage, you get to play the best teams.
Yeah.
And that's where you got to show up. In 2 games and 2 matches, you got to overcome. So I don't know if the experience of Arsenal is there to where if you do take a Real Madrid or a Bayern Munich, I don't know where that would be. But currently, at this moment, Arsenal are playing brilliant in the Champions League. And speaking by Kai, again, I know we talked about it last week, but I do think he starts in certain games, and then all the games I don't think he should start or fit.
The way that because it'll change depending on the opponent and how we want to play.
Yeah, I mean, imagine this: you're playing Bayern Munich or Man City or Real Madrid in the Champions League. You don't want Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli. I think the balance is thrown off to where you need to be a little bit more cautious in the way you approach those games compared to if you're playing Lens at home, where you're pretty much guaranteed the Champions League to progress. You're just fighting for the top spot, and then there's no pressure really. Like, you can go out, you want to attack in front of your fans, and you're full of confidence. So I think it depends on the game.
I'd agree with you on that.
For when Kai starts.
So let me ask you guys this question, because Arsenal's obviously they had not the greatest start, but not a bad start to the season, and now they're back in the top spot in the Premier League. They're doing really well in the Champions League. What is missing from this Arsenal squad that would make you say that you think that they would probably be winning the Premier League and also have a really good chance of winning the Champions League? Is there anything missing?
I think the biggest thing with the talent and players we have, assuming everyone stays healthy and gets healthy, because keep in mind, we are doing this too without Timber, which you could argue is one of our, I would say people thought would be one of the most influential signings, but obviously I think Declan Rice is proving that he has changed how we play dramatically. The only thing I think is missing is some experience, honestly, because to Georgie's point, when you have to go away to Bayern Munich, or you have to go away to Borussia Dortmund, or you have to go away to Real Madrid, it might be hard for some of our younger players. On the flip side of that, though, a lot of those younger players have played in World Cups, have played all over the world, and played in some big competitions, Euro finals. When you talk about people like Saka, but I think that would be the biggest thing that would hold us back. I think we could get there with these players, maybe needing one or two more, but I think the experience more than anything is the thing that will hurt us as we go forward.
It's a fair point. What about you, Georgie?
It's tough just because you guys have the whole entire team when healthy. I feel like you have people to come off the bench that can make the difference. You have Nketiah comes off the bench, Trossard can come off the bench. Those are two really good players when you're a goal down or chasing a goal, whatever, 2-3 goals. Or if there is an injury to Martinelli, Saka, Jesus, they can come in and replace him. The problem I have is if Odegaard goes out, yes, Kai can play in that similar position, but Odegaard is like a very, very key player for you guys. Just because I don't really see anybody else replacing Odegaard in your midfield.
Yeah.
He was out though, and who was stepping in? Vieira, I think, for one game or two did.
He's out.
He's out because he's suspended because he got that red card, but he should be back.
Isn't he injured for a while?
No, he got that red, and I think he has one more suspension. I think with Wolves. Then I think he's cleared after that game.
I agree with you, Georgie, because I think the one game where it was clear to me that Arsenal were struggling was the Chelsea game in the Premier League, because they took Odegaard out of the picture in the way that Chelsea was playing that match. So clogging up the midfield, preventing the passes from getting to Odegaard and to Declan Rice. And that was the one time this whole season I felt like, maybe not the one time, but the clearest time where I felt like Arsenal were exposed. And that was like you said, take out Odegaard and you're taking out a huge part of the Arsenal system. So I was saying this to Joe before we started the podcast, but if I could pick one player right now to come back and be part of this Arsenal squad that would help us, I would say bring back Ozil. Because Ozil, for me, solves the problem. And maybe I'd have to go for a forward. That would make more sense.
You don't mean bring him back, like, obviously, because he's...
Like, not right now. I'm just saying if
like dream state.
The timeline was different, I'd have Ozil coming into the Arsenal team right now in his prime. Because I think I would settle for having Declan Rice as more of a 6 with Ozil and Odegaard in front. And with the rest of our team, I think that becomes really, really exciting to see. And I don't think we lose the ball in the midfield at all, just with the technical ability of all those three players. Realistically, that's never going to happen, obviously. I was just dreaming a little bit because I felt like Ozil came at the wrong time. If you think about the team right now, I think he would say he would like to really play with this team right now.
Yeah, I mean, Ozil is... I don't want to compare Odegaard and Ozil just because...
They're similar players.
They're very similar players.
I would just like both of them there.
Yeah, but both at the same time.
Yeah, both as 210s.
See, that's where I thought I
think the balance gets way.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think even that goes back to your point though, depending on the game, right? A game where you're going to have possession, and you're going
against
against
break down the defender. Yeah, of course.
Nottingham Forest at home. Absolutely, having both of them on the field, you can break them down. But in an open game where you need to box to help defend,
right? But again, it goes back to matchups, right? Against certain teams that probably might not be the greatest, because then we'd end up with way too many players on the wrong side of the ball, maybe. But I just think the technical ability and the chemistry between him and Odegaard in those tight spaces would give us so many opportunities for the front three. So, and we've talked about, we're not really sure who fits into that second 10/8 position right now. I mean, we've put Declan Rice in there, but then you have to put somebody else as a 6, and it's like you're not really 100% sure. Maybe when Partey comes back and playing Partey there, that makes more sense to have Declan Rice a little bit higher, and then I guess that kind of completes everything. But I think Declan Rice as a 6 and then putting those two guys as 10s, even though they're very similar, I think for me would be really nice to see.
Didn't they play together at Real Madrid?
Yeah, but Odegaard never really played it.
Yeah, Odegaard
I guess
was
technically
like
they did,
16
yeah.
or whatever. But that's interesting. By the way, I do want to ask this. Watching Arsenal this year, I feel like Arteta's changed some things. Because I know it's, I mean, I don't want to
change things tactically?
Yeah, because I don't want to say it's early on in the season because we're a third into the season now. But attacking-wise, it doesn't seem like, obviously I'm talking 6-0 game, it's completely different. But prior to this, attacking wise, it felt like he switched things around to be more defensively sound.
Mm-hmm.
That you guys are much better, more balanced on the defensive side compared to like scoring goals, being all out, and be more attacking and open. Do you guys notice that a little bit more, or?
I would agree with you. It really shows, I think, in the games against City, in the games against Newcastle, where they are not getting many chances, and same thing against United, like against the bigger clubs. I think he's been very adamant on that and making sure we don't give up as many chances. It gets frustrating though in games like the one against Brentford, where we're then not creating as many. Part of me also thinks though that a lot of teams have realized really where you need to cut us off, because if you can stop the ball getting into Odegaard, or you can stop the ball getting into Saka or both, because normally Odegaard's the one that feeds it to Saka anyways, you do, to your point with the Chelsea game, really can shut us down. Where Martinelli can create, but we really like to start through the right side of the field and create with Ben White or Tomiyasu, who's been playing really well, Odegaard, Saka, and then those cross-ball switches, which then leave Martinelli 1v1, are where we, I think, create a lot of chances. So I'd 100% agree with you, though, that it seems different. I think more sound.
It does, for me, the word is like it's more balanced.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, in the I think even just in some of the opening games, we came out flying on all of those games.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost all out attack, but it was so fun to watch because Arsenal in the first 15-20 minutes of each game was just dominating teams. But I think this year it hasn't been as high intensity, but it has been a little bit more balanced. They're a little bit more similar to Manchester City in the way where like throughout the game you see how they've established possession and dominance of the game without going all out attack. So I do think tactically, maybe, I don't know if that's on purpose or maybe they're just kind of a little bit more experienced and more comfortable and switching it up just naturally. But I have noticed that as well.
That kind of I was actually going to ask you guys, do you think it's a mixture of the maturity of the players, or do you think it's also because I think back to last season, and a lot of games we gave up very, very early goals, and then we had to fight back, and we made a lot of games harder on ourselves than we need to. Do you think that's something that he's been trying to drill into them of like, hey, we don't have to go out. You can't win the game in the first 15 minutes, but you can put yourself in a position where you can. It's going to be really hard or really easy to drop points if you go down like 1-0 to Bournemouth like we did last season, where we needed, I think, a 93rd minute winner from Reece Nelson to win it. Do you think that's part of something like he's saying is like, hey, let's just go out in the first 10 minutes and get settled in? Because if we can get settled into the game, keep it 0-0, we're probably going to find our goal at some
And I
point.
think that way you probably don't have to score as many goals to win games, right? Because obviously you're not giving up as many. So I think that's been, and I think, another year of experience of all. This team has been very similar to the team that we had last year. We didn't do a huge change. We brought in just some of the positions that we needed to fill. Mm-hmm. But now you think about Gabriel and Saliba playing together for an entire year. Now they're going into their second year playing together. Martinelli, Saka, Jesus playing together for another year. So I think that the ability to just kind of feel more comfortable around each other balances everything out for them to look like more experienced team.
Agreed.
So easy dub. They scored 4 goals within like a 13-minute.
It was insane
Time period. So it was.
I kept getting notifications like Arsenal scored. I was like, is my app messed up?
Yeah. Should we talk about some of the other games that had less controversy and then go with all the controversy, or should we just go through all the games regardless? Because we can go into the conspiracy theory section right now if we wanted to.
Yeah, let's skip that one.
Let's skip that one. All right, let's
go.
Let's go
that one last.
Let's talk about Manchester United and Galatasaray. 3-3. The big talking point, Onana's performance. Who wants to start by describing some of those goals?
Joe, you wanna?
Do I want to be mean to Onana?
No.
I don't even know what to say to them, really. Both of them, I think, just show kind of where he is in terms of a lack of confidence and a lack of belief, where he's trying to, the first one where he's trying to anticipate Ziyech's shot going over the wall, body weight's on his wrong foot, ball goes right past him. And then on the second one, I think the second one is,
and that one, it goes into the middle of the goal as well.
Yeah, you're right. The blatant middle where he just had to stand there and catch it. That one I think was the worst of the two. I know the second one looks worse at initial glance because he gets that hand on it, but I think Martial ducking out of the way is more of a problem. Like if I'm Ten Hag, I'm more frustrated with Martial. I think not heading the ball and just letting it go through to your keeper. With that being said, Onana still needs to obviously do better with it. It's just another example of United finding ways to make their life really, really hard. Crazy part is they can still escape the group, but they're not in a difficult group, and I thought they could get through easily, and now they're really struggling.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting so much hate, obviously on social media, and all those videos are always going to be shared and all that stuff. So I do feel for the guy because, man, especially as a goalkeeper, like confidence, like being mentally there and fully focused and confident is the biggest thing, the most important thing. And when you're in there alone, I can only imagine what it feels like. And I just feel really bad for the guy. Obviously, I don't like Manchester United, so it is what it is. But like the one thing that I mentioned earlier was in preseason, when Harry Maguire made that mistake, Onana sprinted 20 yards to like yell at Maguire and went absolutely crazy in a preseason game. I'm just thinking like, man, how do you feel now if Maguire was to come up to you and do the same exact thing? And I know that happens, and like it's just part of the game sometimes, and the emotions get the best of you. But
it's also that's almost like a one-way street because the goalkeepers can do it way more often to the defenders than the defenders can go in.
Yeah.
You rarely see a defender go up to the goalkeeper.
And say, like, what are you doing?
If anything, they do the opposite normally when a goalie makes a mistake. Hey, they'll go pick him up. They'll pick their head up, things like that. But
It's just like, as soon as I saw those, like, few mistakes that he did in that game, my mind, like, I feel bad, and then I think about that moment. And I'm like, it's not karma, but, like, it just, like, it just sucks to see that, like, some guy in preseason, you just came into the club, you're yelling at somebody that was made into like a huge meme at Manchester United for doing very similar things to that you're doing now, and it's just like it's funny how it all comes around. Like, but for both Maguire and for Onana, man, I really feel bad because obviously you don't want players to be suffering, and like some of those players going through those mentally challenging times. And after the game, I don't know if you guys saw the clip, he's by himself, like the whole Manchester United team is walking together, and he just like stands like in the 6-yard box, takes off his gloves and just like puts his shirt on his like face and is like, what am I doing? Like he can't. And that's what like imagine next game, like all for the next 3-4 days you're gonna hear about all the mistakes you made, and then you go into the next game, first shot that comes into you, you're gonna be like, oh crap, am I gonna be able to like catch it? So it's tough. For me, it's the issue for me is the technical part of his game. I think that's where he's really struggling. I think athleticism, natural ability, that's the reason why they brought him into Manchester United. I don't think he was very polished, and I think they knew that. And I think now it's getting really exposed because even the second goal, the one where, like you said, Martial kind of ducks out of the way. I think Martial ducks out of the way because he doesn't want to score an own goal. So he's like, if I put my head on this and I accidentally score, I'd rather just get out of the way, right? So it wasn't like he just completely ducks because he doesn't want to head the ball. It's more so because he's getting closer to goal and he's probably not in the right position. So he's like, oh, I'm going to not touch it in case I deflect it, and that's why the goal goes in. But even his reaction, it wasn't necessarily that his reaction was late, is that his technique and his body positioning was just not correct. Like I'm not a goalkeeper coach, but you can tell what a goalkeeper's supposed to look like when they make a save. So if you look at it, he's like completely in the wrong position. The way he gets his hands down, he almost like overcorrects. It just doesn't look good at all. And I've seen some of those. I feel like I've seen that from him in Manchester United. It reminds me a little bit. We were talking about this. It reminds me a little bit about when they brought David De Gea in for the first time.
when I saw De Gea at Atletico de Madrid, he literally looked like he was 14, 15 years old. Super skinny, really young kid, but I thought he was a very good goalkeeper. And then when I heard that Manchester United was getting him, I was like, that's actually makes a lot of sense. Young guy with a lot of potential, already with some experience playing against Real Madrid, playing against Barcelona. I think the problem with Manchester United goalkeeping is that it is probably one of the hardest teams in the world to be a goalkeeper at. Because of the amounts of pressure, because of the people that have come before you and the legacies that they have had, right? So when you think about like Schmeichel, and then you think about Van der Sar, and then now you're thinking now De Gea, who's been there for so long. Like, it is hard to follow up all of those performances, and I'm sure we can go back even further. So I think Manchester United, their approach isn't we're going to get a really good goalkeeper right now. Their approach is we're going to find a goalkeeper who we feel has the potential, maybe is not fully polished, give them a couple of years of getting settled in, and then they're going to be our goalkeeper long term, and they're going to be one of the best goalkeepers in the world. So I think they did that with De Gea, where we talked about his first year was not the greatest year, and people were asking questions, but they trusted in him. They developed him because they have some good goalkeeper coaches there. And then next thing you know, De Gea's there for, I mean, how long was he there for? Probably close to a decade, right?
Yeah. About.
So I think they're probably going to do something similar with Onana until they realize, if they realize, that his potential is just not what they thought it was originally going to be. Because I think they knew what they were getting. They just thought, we just got to polish him up a little bit.
I agree on that.
Do you bench him now and take him away from the spotlight for a few games and let him just train, get away from media, get away from everything that's going on, and just...
The hard part is, you know who their next game is? Newcastle away on Saturday.
Doesn't get any easier.
No, it doesn't. The thing I do respect about Onana, I think back to the Bayern game where he made that mistake, and in his press conference right after, he said, like, we lost the game today because of me. That part of me thinks he puts also some unnecessary pressure on himself too. I respect him for coming out and saying that. Obviously, it's the right thing to say, but not everybody comes out and says that. So who knows? I don't think Ten Hag will wait. I don't think so, because it goes back to what we were talking about with the Ramsdale Raya thing. That unless if you do bench him, what version of him will you get back after that?
Yeah, and the difference I think is who is the backup. So they have Heaton on the bench for this last game. Tom Heaton on the bench, who's 37 years old.
Isn't it a young Turkish goalkeeper? Because that's what they were talking about. I don't know.
So that's what they had on the bench. Oh, they had Bayan Deer.
Supposedly he's the next.
He's 25 years old.
Yeah.
So maybe
he's not even young,
right?
25 is pretty young for a goalkeeper. For a goalkeeper, that's yeah.
But still, it's not a situation where they have another goalkeeper who could also be the number one. Whereas Arsenal, that's a situation that you have there.
That's a different situation.
So that's why, again, it goes back to, I think you pick the goalkeeping situation is very difficult because at Manchester City, at Liverpool, those two teams, you have a clear number one, and then they recruit a solid number two. Mm-hmm. Purposely, and sometimes they even get like older goalkeepers with some experience that know that they're okay being number two because they've done a lot already and they've been proven. Manchester United doesn't have a goalkeeper that you're saying how many mistakes are you going to give Onana before you give this guy a chance. At least not as of right now. But you still got to ask the question: how long do you give him?
I would say that I think they'll stick with him through the end of the year, really, because they're in that phase of not that the games don't matter to them. But I think they are building for the long term. And if they truly believe in him, they have to kind of let him struggle through that. And letting him struggle through it when you're not chasing titles. Because let's call it what it is. They're not chasing the Champions League. They're not chasing the Premier League.
Well, they're chasing the Champions League probably, right? What place are they in right now? They were like...
They're last. I mean, like, they're not actually chasing through.
Sorry.
They're actually going to win.
I'm talking Premier League. I'm talking like position in the table, to get Champions Champions League.
That they're chasing down to finish in top four, but like they're not chasing down trying to win any of those titles. Where it's even with those mistakes, I think they could still make a good run at top four.
Yeah.
To me, their biggest problem is they don't score enough goals.
It's just
obviously
interesting
not in that game, but
interesting though because if he doesn't make any of those mistakes today, Manchester United, you would say, would probably coast to a pretty comfortable win.
Mm-hmm. And they would have, 100%.
Yeah.
So changes the outlook on the game and overall the team's performance as well, right?
Yeah, and the season, really.
I mean, but as a defender, Any player really, but more as a defender, because we've talked about Arsenal, where you get comfortable with your goalkeeper and you feel the confidence that even if you do mess up, the keeper has your back.
Mm-hmm.
Now at Manchester United, now you're under even more pressure to make sure you don't get shots off and all of that. So it just adds more pressure to
Lindelof and Harry Kane or Harry Maguire, and
already a terrible situation.
Yep.
So let's move on from that game. Let's go to the other side of Manchester. Man City versus Leipzig, 3-2 comeback. Georgie, you should have bet on the game, man. We were talking about it. I asked Georgie at one point. I was like, "What are the odds on Manchester City making a comeback?" They were at home.
Yeah, they're down 2-0, right?
2-0
at halftime.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think I would have bet on them had it been 1-0. I would have been like, all right, I think they can comfortably get 2 goals in the second half. I thought that the most they would probably be able to get in 45 minutes would have been 2 goals, and it would have ended as a draw. But they come back and get all 3 points. Good performances from Phil Foden. Doku, once again, playing an impact. And he came on at halftime, I believe, for Jack Grealish.
50. I just pulled up 54th minute. Yeah,
that's another player that's tough, because you talk about the impact that Jack Grealish had last year and how much he transformed as a player, where he started doing the defensive work, he started fitting into the Manchester City style, started getting minutes, and then this year,
out the door pretty much.
It's tough, isn't it? And then performance like that, Doku comes in, and Doku, who's been performing so well, just makes his case even clearer.
It's crazy because we just watched the highlights. Some of the worst defending you're going to see from Manchester City side for the 2 goals.
Akanji and Ruben Diaz, huh?
Just terrible.
Mm-hmm. Well, that forward had a really good performance, first of all. He scored that brace in the first half. But I don't know what Akanji's doing in the first one. Like, it's not even that the guy shields him off the ball. He just stands there and watches the ball go past him.
It almost looked like he thought like the ref blew the whistle or something, like the game stopped, because he kind of just
stopped.
Yeah, he just stopped, or he thought he was offside or something.
Yeah, that or he thought like the guy was going to just trap it, and he was just waiting for the guy to trap it before he applied pressure. But the guy just lets it go around him, and then the next thing you know, Akanji's like in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
I will say Openda still had a lot, like on both of those goals too. Although they were a defensive error, he still had
a lot to do.
A lot to do. He gets a shot off in the perfect time. Where honestly, I thought Diaz was gonna get to him, because if Diaz slides on that first goal, I think he could have got it, but.
Yeah,
it was
good performance.
Typical Manchester City performance for the most part.
Yeah, the reason I didn't bet on that game is they're already top. Like they're going through. They don't.
So you didn't think they were really cared about?
Yeah, I mean, from the lineup they put out, you have some like players that are like maybe not really the usual starters, which is normal just because they've already qualified. So they're not taking it as, as hard. But then you think about they're at home. They don't want to lose a game. Who knows what that will do to confidence. And then typical Pep. Obviously, I highly doubt that he would want to lose at home in the Champions League. So I just thought, I feel like this game would mean more to Leipzig than it would to Manchester City, especially with the start and how they performed. But
you got to be disappointed if you're their manager going into halftime 2-0 over Man City.
And then walking away losing.
And then walking away 3-2.
Yeah.
As a coach, I always think when I get into those situations, the question becomes, especially against a team like Manchester City, where you're not expected to be up at half.
Especially 2 goals.
Right. So you're just kind of expected to still be in the game at halftime, right? Mm-hmm. So when it gets to half, you're probably excited about the performance in the first half. You're like, wow, fantastic, we're up 2-0. But then it begs the question, what do you do? Do you say, okay, we're going to continue playing like this because we've been doing well? Or do we go more defensive and just hold on as long as we can? Because even if they score a goal on us, we still win the game. So the question when this happens to me is I always think, how good is the other manager? How good is the other team at making changes? Because if I keep it thinking like we're doing so well, and the next thing you know, Manchester City makes changes, which Pep will always do.
Yep.
And then the game goes on and you get scored a goal, and by the time you try and make changes again, it might be a little bit too late. Or do you just say, you know what? I don't care how well we're playing. We just got to park the bus a little bit here. So I wonder if it's also that if the coach is also losing a little bit of sleep at night thinking I should have probably done something a little bit different in that second half, or he feels he feels okay with the fact that they didn't really change too much in Manchester City, just is Manchester City.
The thing is, I mean, I didn't watch the game, so I have no idea if they did change something or not.
The thing I thought was weird is they did take off Openda in the 60th minute, where at that point City had gotten 1 goal back. And then I think was the decision to like park the bus because they took off Openda and they took off, who did they take off? I think Forsberg at that time.
So again,
they changed how they played once they gave up that first goal.
Was it too late?
I would have kept Openda on and maybe made a different change because at the end of the day, he clearly is the only chance you are having to score at all. And as City continue to try and chase the game, I think you have a better chance of getting a 3rd goal than holding on to a 2-goal lead at the Etihad when City's putting players like Doku on the field. I think that's what I would have done.
See, and again, differently. For me, that's where I'm like, even though you're still up 2-1, the game is completely different at that point because now you're only 1 goal away. Manchester City has the momentum because they just scored,
and they're at home.
So like by then you're almost like
they're gonna get another chance.
You're almost like shit. I should have done it before we got scored. Like I should have done it at the beginning of the half instead of waiting for the 65th minute.
But even
maybe
then,
not,
like you also
that change.
Even then, you don't. I don't know, man. I'm not a huge, especially against a team like City. You don't want to go out and play like head to head necessarily against them, but you also have to understand with Haaland now, if you sit back, they're going to score. The question is just how many.
Yeah.
I think the only way you play Man City is if you want to get a result, you go head to head.
Yep.
I mean, it worked in the first half. Obviously, terrible defending by Man City.
You got to take some risks,
but
for sure.
If you stick to whatever they did in the first half, and you say, okay, Man City have to push now, they're gonna lead. They're gonna take more risks, more chances. But you taking your top 2 attacking players off the game, it pretty much tells Man City, okay, we really have nothing to worry about.
So they can push forward a little bit more. So they can
push forward and actually take those risks. Where if you have Openda still up there running around, he's really, really quick, fast, skillful, good on the ball, can finish. All you need is one more chance, and you put the game to bed. Or at least get something out of it. But again, for both teams, I think they're both already qualified, so it didn't really
matter
too much. So maybe he's like, all right, whatever happens here happens. We had a good half against Man City. We know we can keep up. I don't want any injuries. I want to concentrate on the league game coming up or whatever. Because they're not doing too well, I don't think, in the Bundesliga. So I'm probably like 4th, 5th.
Let's move on from that game. Let's go into Real Madrid versus Napoli, 4-2. Once again, we and here's the thing. Here's the crazy thing. We don't really talk too much about things outside of the Premier League and outside of the Champions League. The one player that we've mentioned multiple times for his performances in La Liga have been Jude Bellingham.
Best player in the world right now.
You believe so?
Yeah.
Yep. So far this year, yep.
It's crazy.
Best player.
It's watching him play. I'm still trying to figure out like who is he a mixture of and how does he play. And he's a culmination of like the best of so many different players. It's incredible to watch. It's absolutely amazing. Like and every goal he scores and all these assists, they're all different. He can do, and George was saying it earlier that he doesn't. What is he really good at?
I can't tell
everything.
You what he's really good.
He's just good at everything.
Yeah.
There's not one like usually when you watch Ronaldo, right, back in the day, like at Manchester United, the dude quick and can dribble, can take on players. Like that's what he's known for. Ronaldo, Madrid, he's gonna be in the box, he's gonna score goals. Haaland, he's gonna score goals. Bellingham's everything.
Jude does that, and then he whips in amazing crosses. He wins defensive battles. He can switch to play in the midfield.
It almost bugs me. It almost bugs me that a player who's not a forward is scoring this many goals. Like a traditional forward.
Yeah.
Because in my head, I'm thinking, why isn't anybody picking up his run into the box? Because he's not starting there. He's not like Haaland who just waits at the top of the box and waits until he gets the ball at the feet. He's like starting plays, creating plays, and then ends up in the box finishing the plays as well. So I just wonder, I'm like, there's got to be some in the tactical plan for teams. You always pick out who the strongest players are. And there's some players who you just can't do anything about. Multiple managers have said, you can do whatever you want. You can't stop Messi. We just have to hope that he has a bad night, right? But you still plan for it. You say, oh, what can we do? Do we man mark him? Do we not man mark him? Do we pick him up when he makes runs? Do we double team him? What do we do? And it almost to me feels like nobody's really tried to man mark him or try to pick him up. So they just kind of let him run free. And if you look at a lot of the goals that he scores, he starts in a position like the 10, bounces the ball around a little bit, and then makes a run into the box, and then gets at the end of the cross. So I don't know. It bugs me a little bit, and I know it's difficult. Obviously, I know at that level it's difficult when a player is that good. But to your guys' point, yeah, it's just hard to describe the things that he does well. But next thing you know, the ball's at the edge in the back of the net.
Part of me thinks so too. Is his work rate is so high, like he's everywhere. If you think about his goal and his assist, his goal comes from him making a run down the left wing and then crossing it, and then his goal comes from a cross that comes from the left side of the field all the way across the box. He's the furthest man forward on the far right side of the box, diving header far post. Where I don't know if you really can man mark him for how much work he puts in. It's got me thinking. I want to go look at some of his stats from a distance coverage standpoint and from a speed standpoint, because it seems like he's everywhere throughout the game. And those were always the type of people, as like playing a number 6, that was my main position. I hated playing against people like him, where he's going to track back on the few times I would make a run forward, and he's always running past me. So I either have to communicate with my central defender or track him and make the run back, and both are difficult to do.
You know what it's like? It's almost like the opposite of the false 9. When Messi did the false 9 for the first time, it's almost like Jude Bellingham's doing the opposite. It's like you're going to start low, but you're really a striker. So you're like a false 10. So like you start a little bit lower, and then next thing you know, you're going to be in the back of in the box ready to score, and the defenders aren't going to be able to figure out how to pick you up. So where Messi plays a false 9, where Messi would drop into the space and goes from center backs picking him up to pushing him onto the holding center mids, and that confusion between the two. It's almost like the opposite with Jude Bellingham, where it's like the holding mids or one of the midfielders, a higher line starts with him, and then they don't know when to push him off to the center backs, and the center backs don't know exactly when to pick him up.
You honestly, now that you say that, you might be onto something. You might be onto something, because I think then Kai Havertz does a similar role, and it's hard to pick up. The difference is he misses most of those chances that he gets, but same idea. And Gakpo kind of does the same thing for Liverpool, because they don't have him starting as a 9. Normally, they have him starting in the midfield. That might be a new position.
Is this the creation of the false 10?
Yeah,
The false 10.
Could be.
Do you think Real Madrid knew what they were getting from Jude when they got him? In terms of, because, when you watch him in Borussia Dortmund, he was he still got forward. Mm-hmm. He still scored, not to this extent.
Yeah.
But I feel like he was more of a midfielder compared to what he is now.
Yeah.
And I think when they first got him, he was more of a, let me play that 6 or an 8 role. And then I think they realized what he is. And now he can play alongside the Modric and Cruz instead of taking one of their spots. So now it's like you don't even need the striker.
I think it was just personnel for me. I think it's when you go from playing for Borussia Dortmund, I don't think he had as much freedom as he gets at Real Madrid because of the players that he has around him as well. Yeah. So I think with Borussia Dortmund, he had to play a more specific role to help the team, whereas with Real Madrid, he can leave a certain position knowing that whoever's going to cover his position or whoever's going to be in that next space is just as good as him. Or maybe not just as good as him, but is much higher quality than his teammates at Borussia Dortmund.
And as he continues to score, it's just gives him more and more and more freedom to go forward. I do think they were probably somewhat surprised, though, at how good he actually is. I could see Ancelotti being very surprised, like, oh, wow, this guy's... And it seems like he's picking things up quickly and adding things to his game really quickly. It kind of makes me think, too, about like Declan Rice and how surprised Arteta, I think, is in terms of what he gives. Because Declan Rice with Arsenal compared to Declan Rice with West Ham, to your point in like personnel, he's the same player, but you're really able to see the quality now, because he doesn't have to do everything by himself, that he does trust his teammates more, can move the ball. But
and the impact is greater.
Yeah.
Right? Because the more positive things he does, the higher chances that they actually end up in goals. Whereas not as much with some of the other teams.
Yeah.
There's few players throughout history that are special, and Jude Bellingham is getting to that point. I mean, it's still, I don't think you can judge a player by one season. I think it's going to have to be a couple of seasons before you can really say that. Mm-hmm. But the trajectory that he's on, I think, shows that he could be one of the special players in history.
So he has the peak of it. Now it's going to see can he keep the consistency over extended periods of time? Because you could even say like Torres was
that was a name I was going to bring up.
Really, like at that time with Liverpool,
for the longevity of what you thought if you would have had the same one season as he would have had throughout his whole career, right? But it was more so just a couple good seasons that he had, and then it was like,
I mean, all the teams are going to, to your point, they're going to watch tape. They're going to know like how to defend him better going forward. Because he's 10 games into La Liga. It's still fairly new to everyone. The system's changed at Real Madrid to where you have Vinny on one side, Rodrigo. They're evolving as players. They're getting better, stepping up. So it's a lot. It's easier for Drew to step in and have a role like that, where other teams are worried about everybody else that's been at Real Madrid for the past 2 years now. So
let me pose a question for you guys, because this is an interesting one. We're talking about Jude Bellingham and what he can become, because he's been doing so well this early. What player in history, at least in our lifetime that we've seen, would you say had the biggest potential to become one of those special players and for whatever reason didn't get there? If you have to pick just one.
Wow.
You have to pick just one.
In our lifetime.
Because there's some that have, like we talk about, Fernando Torres had a couple good seasons, a couple very good seasons.
Yeah.
But then some seasons where you're like, some seasons where you're like.
But then Chelsea,
you mean in terms, like, I've got one, I guess that's kind of coming. There's two that I have coming to mind, but you said I can only pick one. Both coincidentally played together, so I think you guys will probably pick up the second one.
You can say both. You can say both, but
I'll say one, and then I'll let Georgie pick one because I don't want him to. I don't want to steal one of his potentially. The one that jumps out to me is Suarez, because I think back to his time at Liverpool, and I still remember watching Suarez and Sturridge together, and some of those things that he would do, I've never seen. One goal that jumps out to me is like a 60, 70-yard ball. He's running this way. I've never seen anyone chest a ball down and finish it in a touch while running the same direction the ball was going.
Yeah.
Like the physics of it to me don't even make sense.
Yeah.
That
under pressure.
Yeah, and I don't want it to come across thinking that he's had a bad career by any means, because he's done tremendously. But like when you look at what he did with Liverpool and what he did for a lot of times with Barcelona, the drop off after that I think happened pretty quickly. Part of that is because he didn't get really, really good until I think a little bit later in terms of age. He wasn't like the 19-year-old phenom like Jude started, but that's the person that jumps out to me is Suarez.
Moral of the story: don't leave Liverpool. I mean, it's simple. Torres best years at Liverpool. Suarez best years at Liverpool.
Who's yours?
It's tough to say. I don't. I can't. I can't. I don't know.
Most people,
what about you? Do you have one?
Well, I have. First of all, let me talk about.
Do you know who
Luis
the
Suarez.
second one I was thinking of?
I think so. And this is but let me talk about Suarez first. I think Suarez. The reason why I don't count him is because I think throughout his career, you would say that Liverpool was his best moment or the start of Barcelona, maybe. But I never felt like Luis Suarez. There was so much more untapped potential that he had. I think even in his best moment for Liverpool, that was probably the height of his career. I never felt like, wow, he could be so much more, and for whatever reason, he didn't get there. I felt like he had a good season. He went to Barcelona, unreal. And it was like we saw kind of what was his top.
Yeah,
top
we just
level,
didn't see it for to your point with we just didn't see it for as long as it could have been.
And I wonder if maybe if he would have been playing for a better team, because those years in Liverpool weren't the best years for Liverpool. So maybe if he was
the Gerrard slip.
So like I'm just thinking if maybe he was playing for, was that like when Manchester United was winning, was it towards the end of Manchester United or the beginning?
Manchester United weren't.
No, that was who already beat you guys that year with the slip? Was it
Chelsea? Wasn't it?
No,
we played.
You were playing Chelsea.
Was Sir Alex Ferguson still
I think
there?
was it Leicester that year? No,
I don't know who it was.
But
no, that was 2000.
That wasn't Sir Alex. That was like Ole Gunnar,
okay,
or that
so
might have been with who was the Dutch coach? Van Gaal. Yeah, Van Gaal when he fell down.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Who won that year? It wasn't. What was it? City?
No, I don't think it was City.
I don't know, but either way, I think maybe if he would have played for a better team, but I don't feel like he ever got to the point where I was like, man, he could have been so much better than he was because he had so much potential. That's why I don't pick Suarez.
It was City.
I think the one that stands out to me that everyone talks about is probably Hazard.
Others are going.
Everyone, like if you ask a lot of the professional players of that time who the best player that they've ever played with was, a lot of them will say Hazard. And I've seen just going off of the interviews, they talk about the talent that he had. His was one that I feel like fits in that category because of his approach to the game wasn't at the same level that Ronaldo's approach was, or that Messi's, or somebody else who was truly passionate about developing themselves to the best. He was like a kid who was just playing at the park with his friends, and he just happened to be very good. People were talking about how nights before games he was just staying up late to play video games because he wasn't worried about what was going to happen during the game because he knew what he could do.
And so that's a good one.
Did you? That wasn't yours?
No.
I could swore that would have been yours.
No, that's a good one.
That's what everyone said.
The other one I was thinking was Neymar.
Yeah, Neymar is, you can put Neymar.
Yeah,
Coutinho, Liverpool.
That's a good one.
Coutinho.
But like,
what about Thiago? Like you can say
I
people like
think
Thiago. Yeah.
Thiago was a clear one for me because everyone knows how good he is. Unfortunately, his body just didn't let him.
see, but that's what I was gonna ask. It's different when you talk about injuries because like
I'm just thinking what they could have become in your head.
Like that
Regardless of whether it was
the game
injuries,
missed
motivation.
this
Yeah,
based on whatever thing.
Yeah.
You could say, I mean, honestly, another one that jumps out to me, Adriano.
oh yeah.
Like an
Adriano.
old school one. I remember
could have
watching
been-
him. He's kind of what we were talking about a minute ago with. He was like the first type of person who had the technical ability,
Yeah.
but also had the physicality that's really starting to come out now with your players like Jude and players like Holland,
Yeah.
where they have both. Doku even has that a little bit.
So
It's a little
Adriano,
smaller,
actually, now that you
obviously,
bring
but-
him up, kind of reminds me of what, like the direct comparison, had he reached his potential and had he been very consistent for more than just a couple of years, is Holland.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's like a direct comparison because of the athleticism and the ability to be a finisher and score goals and technically be able to create chances that are half chances. I think Adriano fits in with that category of kind of like an early Erling Haaland.
Size of a center defender, but the technical ability of a great
It's
striker.
unfortunate when life situations. His big one was his father passing away.
Yeah.
So his father passed away, and he just never really recovered after that. It's tough, man. Because you got to think a lot of those players after they retire, they always think what could have been, what would have been different had I
guarantee
this
still
or
thinks
that.
about it to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's anybody else out there.
I mean, like Kaká and Ronaldo injuries, like they got to the top though.
Yeah, but that's what I'm
So I
saying.
said they
like
won
that-
their Ballon d'Or, they won their World Cups.
So like you've seen what they were
Yeah.
at the top
Yeah.
level. I'm just thinking about players that you wish you would have seen get to their highest level.
Jack Wilshere's one that jumps out to me as an Arsenal
Jack
fan.
Wilshere is I won.
I don't like Jack Wilshere as much because
You know, like little Jackie?
I think he's a good player, but I do see the ceiling on Jack Wilshere. I see the playing style is one of those that like
There's only so much.
there's only so much you can do with that playing style.
Another Arsenal player, Alexis.
Alexis Sanchez was good. Physically, I don't think he would have ever
scored for Inter. Comeback.
He was great at
How
great
crazy
at
is
Barca.
that?
And great, yeah, it is.
Jamie Carragher when they came because they were down 3-0 against Benfica. They came back 3-3. He scored the penalty, and Jamie Carragher's like, "Where has Alexis Sanchez been for the past 5 years?"
Yeah.
I think he just had bad luck in the teams that he played for.
Mm-hmm.
Manchester United, Arsenal, none of those teams were really good fits for him.
No.
So, I mean, I don't know, but he did play for a lot of different teams. So, like, one of them had to be a really good fit. I think his best time was probably when he was at Barcelona.
Yeah.
But even that didn't last very long either.
Because I think they brought in Neymar, I think, to replace him, right?
I think that was probably
Yeah.
around that time. Yeah. All right, so let's move on from the Champions League. Let's go into our favorite segment in this channel, the conspiracy theories.
Dun 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 dun.
This is Georgie's favorite channel. This is Georgie's favorite segment.
This is sponsored by Champion Grind. Conspiracies.
No, not even sponsored by Champion Grant. Sponsored by George. Directly.
Listen,
So-
I mean, it's not a conspiracy though. Like this is VAR. This is
All right, so VAR is the topic for today's conspiracy.
when is it not?
Again, I think we
saw-
had one podcast where VR wasn't
Yeah.
a topic.
So we saw two very similar situations, slightly different, but the outcome was honestly the opposite of what you would expect. So had the outcomes been reversed, you probably would have said VAR made the right decisions in both of those cases, right? So Newcastle versus PSG. Newcastle's up 1-0. PSG scores off a PK because of a handball. So the ball gets kicked into his body. I think his hand is his arm is in a natural position.
Mm-hmm.
Ball gets kicked into his thigh
From very
side.
close.
From very
too.
close.
Very close.
jumps up and hits his hand, and it's not like his hand is up here. It's very close, so it's quick bounce, and then they go to VAR and they call it a penalty. Georgie mentioned that he saw that his uncle told him his best source of information.
Christina uncle, actually, I think that's her name. It was CBS. So after the game, she is I don't know exactly what, but she's in FIFA and she's like part of the referee association. And she said, according to the law of the game, that is a penalty kick.
The way the rule is written.
The way the rule is written, that is a penalty kick. And they like FIFA and the referees don't like it. So now the rule is going to change. The law is going to change from next year to where that will not be called a penalty from now on.
I was confused because I always thought that if it hits a part of your body en route to your hand,
that's what I thought too,
that it wouldn't be a penalty. Yeah. So I thought that was the distinction. So
but either way,
I will say now that I'm thinking about it, I think that's the rule if it leads, like if it deflects off your body and then to your hand and then you score from it.
That's definitely the rule. It cannot lead to a goal. No handball at all.
But that one I thought it was no handball, regardless of how it happens, can lead to a goal.
Yeah, that's true. But
are you sure? Because
we clearly never fact checked ourselves.
Well, it's not just that; it's the fact that you can't fact check because they call it differently every game.
I agree with that.
This is the problem I have. It's either if whatever the rule is, those two situations. Actually, there's quite a few penalties and handballs called and not called. They went to VAR, they got taken away. But the problem is one gets called and the other one doesn't.
Well, just so the people know, the two we're referring to obviously is the Newcastle PSG. I don't know if you mentioned the other one was the McTominay in the Man United Galatasaray game. Yep.
Like he extends his arm on purpose.
So that one is a shot that's further out. Yep. First of all, it doesn't hit any part of his body before it hits his arm, and when the ball is shot to when it comes and hits his arm, he extends his arm out to make his body bigger, and it hits his arm, and they don't call it.
And that one's going on target, and the other one was literally just going across the box.
To be fair, the Bayern Munich one, it's very, very similar to the PSG Newcastle game. It went to VAR, last minute of the game again. It's 0-0. Bayern. Obviously, Bayern don't have to win, so it's not that big of a deal. But at the Newcastle PSG game, that can make or break somebody going through. So it's a lot bigger of a deal. And again, the PSG game, that was called a penalty. Bayern game, it was called a penalty. It went to VAR. They watched it on the screen, and then they
reversed it.
They reversed it. So it made no sense. It was pretty identical to the PSG one.
And then the one that should have been called a handball,
it wasn't.
Was not. So you're saying that the Bayern one they got right.
The Bayern one they got right.
And then the other two.
Two, for some reason, the PSG one, it doesn't make sense. And even today in the Europa League, there was two very, very similar ones to the PSG Bayern, to the PSG Newcastle game. And
is there any way to rewrite these rules, the handball rules, to make it easier when making these decisions? Is it a fact that they need to be more specific with the situations, or almost more broad and less detailed with the description, so that they can generalize things and put it a lot more into one basket, rather than each situation is very, very different because it's specifically written?
I think obviously you do have to change the laws of the game. I don't think though that's the for sure solve, because again, the laws of the game are, you read them and then they're up for interpretation from the people that make the decisions on match day, which is either the linesman, the center ref, or VAR. George and I were talking about how one thing I think that they should do, and take it from the NHL does this, all of the replays in the NHL on goals aren't done first necessarily. I don't know if it's like that anymore, but it started like that when they first had replay, would all go to Toronto. So they have a headquarters. So imagine if there was a VAR headquarters for all of the Champions League. There was a VAR headquarters from the Premier League where you had the same grouping of people making the decisions every time. So at least there could be some continuity between game to game. That you would be outsourcing the VAR decision from the VAR person in like the room at the Emirates to...
And they were doing this live?
Yep, they do it live because they have all these guys in a room. All the games are happening at one time. They have a wall of televisions, and it's like, oh, something happened in the United game. Let's go put it on all the screens. It also happens quicker because they're pretty much reviewing the games as they're all being played to make sure that there's nothing missed. that I think, number one, it will help speed up some of these, because some of these VAR checks are really taking an insane amount of time. And you'll also get more continuity from game to game. But with all of that said, I feel bad for the Newcastle fans out there, because that was a huge drop of 2 points for them. Doug Dawson, I know you know Doug, he's a huge Newcastle fan, and one of my co-workers, JP, is another huge Newcastle fan, and both of them were livid after that game, rightfully.
I got an idea. Ideas to improve the game. This was a segment on the last podcast.
That's true.
This is a segment, ideas to improve the game. What was yours last one?
The Arsene Wenger stole my rule, remember? The Arsene Wenger rule.
So you do it almost like boxing or UFC, except without. I mean, this is not going to happen. First of all, this is one of those crazy things.
I'm confused on where you're going with this. This is exciting.
You get, let's say, and it has to be an odd number. So let's say you get 5
people to vote
per game. You get 5 either ex-professionals or reporters or pundits that are similar to the referees, are neutral in each game. So you can't bring like Gary Neville to do it for a Manchester United game, right? And when these situations happen live, you poll them. So you give them a yes or a PK or a not PK, and they press their button. Should be a PK or should not be a PK. And then whoever...
That's a terrible idea.
3 out of 5 votes. And that's the decision that they make.
The first thing I literally thought of was, what's that show? America's Got Talent, where they have the 4... They hit the X's like that.
I wonder,
you really think that would make sense? So you'd have Gary Neville up there. You'd have Carly Lloyd, Clint Dempsey, and...
Well, let me put it to you this way.
Kate Abdo?
When we watch... so after a bad VAR situation happens, you typically watch all of the highlights and the analysis from all of these people. And when you watch the analysis from all these people, how often do they typically agree with your point of view? Like when we talk about VAR is shambles and all of this stuff, they typically make good points that you're like, that you agree with them. And most of it oftentimes is because they're going against the referees, right? But more often than not, you typically agree with what they're saying, with what these pundits are saying, because they're just as upset as you are about what's going on. So they're explaining it in the same way that you're thinking about the situation. So I just wonder if you just say, okay, all 5 of you guys are on standby, or girls or ladies are on standby. When a situation happens, we will inform you all through a group chat, like not a text message group chat, but like a live group chat, Zoom
speed
call
up the
or whatever.
game, so we're going to go into group me.
And then, okay, was it a penalty or not? Boom. And then submit a report after the match as to why you felt like it was a penalty or not, so that we either invite you back or don't invite you back. Now, again, this is a rule that's not going to happen, and I know there's probably so many faults within this.
I'm excited to see what TikTok says about this one.
I just think you'd be surprised at how much more accurate, at least their decisions, will be with the general public.
Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, Roy Keane,
Thierry Henry,
and Ian Wright.
Yeah, but it'd be a different set
all
of people.
All against in the Man City game.
Yeah, of course.
And then Wolves, random team, last game of the season.
No, but
it's inside the box.
It also
just barely gets touched. All 5 are voting for a penalty.
You know what something like this does is there would be a process to it, right? So there would be like something like you can't just be a random person.
You are far down this rabbit hole.
I'm just saying. There's got to be a process. Like if you want to do this, if you're interested in doing this, sign up for a course, right? It's just like a weekend course where the referees will explain to you their understanding, right? So these people, it's not just like random pundits and random people. It's people who have taken like an oath essentially to say, I will be fair and unbiased and I will do my best to give my honest opinion about these rules. And then it's like boxing and it's like UFC.
Where do they sit? Do they sit like on the side? With
not
like,
and they sit on the side. You don't have to sit on the side. But
do they have like signs?
But like
do they do the Caesar thumbs up?
Maybe you just give them like a little buzzer thing, like a green and a red, right? I mean, this is I'm talking. I just completely made this up, and this is never going to happen. I'm just saying, could be a possibility. At the same time, while I say this, like boxing is like the most corrupt sport when it comes to the judging.
Exactly.
So it's probably not a good idea.
So the thing is, you're never going to find anybody that's not biased.
Yeah.
Even if you put Gary Neville never in a Man United game, he's going to find a way to influence.
Well, because these are ex-players with loyalties to certain clubs, whereas the referees never played for these clubs, so they don't have these loyalties to these countries.
What do we talk when we talk about refereeing? What do we always say? If the game finishes and if you didn't know the referee was there, they had an amazing game. Mm-hmm. What do we do every single podcast?
The best referee is invisible, right?
Yeah. Talk about how great
we talk about VAR.
VAR is.
And pretty much referees are making these decisions with having the technology of watching it 25 times with slow motion, with different camera angles, and we're still here talking about it. So the easiest thing to do, get rid of VAR, and everybody's happy. I know money talks, and it's not going to happen. Keep it for offsides. Actually, scrap VAR for offsides.
Dang, George's anarchy.
Wow.
Complete anarchy.
Get the technology. What is it? The 3D technology.
Semi-automated technology.
Yeah.
Use that. Use that for offsides. Get rid of VAR. And let referees make mistakes. If they're going to make it in real time, or wait 10 minutes, review it, watch it 15 times, and still get it wrong, might as well let the emotions of the game be back, and that's it. Now, what are you talking about?
Those are probably the two biggest situations right now: is the offside and the handballs. Mm-hmm. Besides that, the rest of them, there's not as many consistent situations that happen. So if somebody out there wants to make a lot of money, they should develop some sort of technology. Whoever invented the semi-automated technology for offside, someone needs to invent that technology for handballs, where instead of going to the referees and going to VAR, you have a semi-automated handball technology that tells you whether that should be considered a handball or not.
Or chip every single player and figure out if they did it on purpose.
Yep.
Or not. Wow.
You can tell, ladies and gentlemen, if you can't tell, we have been here for way too long.
It is getting really
my goodness.
Look, this is the easiest thing. If the ball,
first of all, don't say realistically before you're about to say some shit.
No. Realistically, all we need to do is microchip every human being who plays soccer.
3D offsides needs to come in and get rid of VAR for offsides. That's one. Two, when it comes to a handball inside the box, especially, if it hits your body and it hits your hand, it should not be a penalty kick.
Or should you just say? Or you could honestly, you know what the easy thing is? If it ever hits your hand, it's a penalty.
Yeah, but that one's. I disagree with that one.
You could.
You can't because I'm looking at your hand the whole time.
Players are going to be smart enough to just kick the ball directly at people's arms.
So that used to happen. Remember?
Yeah, but before it wasn't a PK for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was, then it wasn't.
It was, then it wasn't.
Originally,
it was
intentional handball, right?
Yeah,
and then it was natural position. And if your hand is close to your body and you're not extending your body, then it's not a handball. So now they've changed it. It feels like they've changed it so many times to the point where everybody's lost track because we talked about. I thought the rule was written differently, and you're like telling me, no, the rule is written this way.
I have a solve that there will never be any more handballs, and I can guarantee you these games will be very exciting to watch.
Wait, you're talking about if everything is a handball?
No. I'm about to tell you this. Every player, you change the jerseys, and every jersey is a straight jacket. And these players. Could you imagine?
We have absolutely lost it on this podcast. When Georgie and I started this podcast, it was I felt like it was pretty formal. Not pretty formal, but now we have just absolutely lost the plot. We're going to move on from the conspiracy theories because that segment.
You have to imagine, like, picture, and you both are laughing because picture a game.
Just crying, man.
All right, listen. Clearly,
describe VAR.
Oh no, straight jackets. Hashtag straight jackets. Throw it in the comments.
PGMOL should never listen to us in terms of ideas to improve the game.
He's talking. He's the one voting about people are walkie-talkies or something.
All right, let's move on. So, laws of the game. Laws of the game.
We don't know them.
So clearly we don't. Here's the question. How can you give up a penalty without even being a player that's on the field? Without being an active player on the field. You're in the game day roster. You're not a fan, but how can you give up a penalty against your team if you're actually not playing in the match currently?
Good luck. Wait. I thought about just yelling it out.
Wait, technically though,
is there anything else I should give him before we let them?
No, but technically,
not like hints, but like, is there any more details that I need to give him to make sure that we're all?
No, I think that's fair. I think you're good.
But isn't there more than one way? If you say it that way.
Okay, so what is one way? I guess I don't know.
Maybe we'll get maybe
the other ones.
The people will let us know.
All right, so make sure you guys go ahead in the comment section down below. Tell us your answers. So typically, I say this: pause the video, write it down, see if you get it right.
How are you just going to tell them
It did happen in an actual match in the German second division, I believe, sir, second division.
Nice.
My uncle told me that. Georgie's uncle told me that. He's where we get all our facts from. All right, Joe, do you want to explain the answer for the people? See if they got it right.
Yeah, sure. I got this one right. No, I didn't actually in real time. But a substitute touching the ball while they're either warming up, not on the field, but like the ball comes in. Anytime as a substitute, if you touch the ball, it's a foul. And if you do that inside your own 18-yard box, obviously foul penalty because you're not an active player who's in the game. So if you are a sub and you're warming up, make sure the ball's fully off the pitch before you touch it.
Yeah, so what happened in the game, as what Joe was saying, is that the substitute was warming up outside of the pitch, but right behind the goal line, off a little bit off to the side of the goal. But there wasn't very much space to warm up, so he's really close to the touchline. So when the ball got kicked by the other team, they took a shot and it was going wide. It went wide so that the ball didn't just go far and the goalkeeper had to go get it. He stopped it thinking that he was out of bounds, but by the time he touched it, his foot actually kept the ball in play. So the referees didn't see it in real time. They had to go to VAR, and VAR said that the ball did not leave the goal or did not leave the field completely, which means it was still in play. Because he was a player of that team and not just a random fan, it becomes a penalty because he touched it within the box. If it would have been a player from the other team warming up, from the attacking team, it would have been awarded as a free kick for the other team. And if it would have been a fan that just comes onto the field and touches the ball, I believe it was a drop ball.
I think it's a drop ball too.
I believe it was a drop ball.
And it's also a yellow card offense for whomever the player is who's illegally touching the ball when they're not supposed to.
So it must feel really bad if you're the guy who's just warming up, trying to do something kind of nice, is like, I'll stop the ball for you so I can give it right back to the goalkeeper, and you forgot to be fully outside of the pitch.
I wonder if he was subbed on after that.
Maybe. And then he scores, and then he comes back. So let us know in the comments, one, if you got or obviously hopefully you've already put your answer or what you thought, but also let us know if you got it right.
What if you are on the bench and you see the other team on the counter? You take out the player, you don't touch the ball. You take out the player, so you run onto the field inside the box. You take out the player right before they shoot. What happens then?
Assume you get sent off for violent conduct.
And it's probably a penalty, I would assume.
Do you think it's still a penalty?
It was because it was interference in the play.
Okay, so
that was the way it was written, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. So
even without touching the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's a good one.
I'll look it up. Just call your uncle. See what he says.
Phone a friend.
All right.
That's interesting.
So that's a good one. Yeah.
That is interesting.
So all right. Wait. This happened in the German second division. They got VAR.
Yeah, apparently.
CONCACAF doesn't yet.
I do have another one, which is interesting. Oh, this is fun fact. I guess it's between fun fact and laws of the game. The IFAB, which is, I don't know what the abbreviation stands for. It's like the International Sporting Association that rules over football, soccer, football, in terms of what the rules are and what decisions, like how the game is played, gives you a recommended field size. So this is not FIFA, because FIFA has their own specific dimensions for what is like a World Cup official
It has to be, yeah.
Do you know what those dimensions are settled, like created by the governing body?
You mean like it can't be more than this and it can't be less than this?
No idea.
Okay, so let's go maximum dimensions.
120 yards.
So 120 yards long.
And then I think 65 yards wide would be my guess.
Minimum or?
No, so max.
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 No, like 70.
So 120 by 70.
I don't know. I'm just
So you're saying it can't go more than 120? And it can't go more than 70 yards wide?
No, because I think 120 is what it's supposed to be. So that wouldn't make sense for that to be the same thing. So I'll go 130 maximum, and I'll go 75 width. Final answer.
120 maximum.
Wow.
Length, which is normal. That's what a typical, because if you think about like a football
that makes sense,
field, right? So that one's the maximum width is 100 yards.
Wow. Playing on almost
Can you imagine playing on a 120 by 100 yard field? We've played, so DCFC 2015, we played at Castech, which technically was definitely not legal, but that field was like 58, 59 yards wide, which is crazy. And then the fence line was like a yard off because that's literally as wide as they could put it. The standard FIFA field, the recommendations by FIFA for a World Cup is 120 by 75. Is a standard.
This would be adding 25 yards.
25 yards, so 12 and a half yards of more space on each side.
That's huge.
That's insane.
It's basically a square at that point.
A very big square.
That's insane.
That is crazy.
I looked at it because it was in my little soccer book.
You're like, no way.
And I was like, there's no way this is right. Somebody didn't write this down properly. But yeah, obviously it will never happen because FIFA has their own rules. But this is what the governing body.
So does the IFAB like? Does that? So that could be in a World Cup then, right? Because I think that that's not monitored by FIFA, the World Cup, or not the World Cup. Geez, the Olympics. That's what
technically, yeah.
Because technically that makes sense.
So the International Football Association Board is what the governing body of the sport is.
So that would be any international footballing event that isn't governed by FIFA or UEFA and stuff. So that would be like, I'm trying to think what that would be outside of the Olympics.
Probably could be. I'm sure UEFA probably has its own dimensions or whatever, but this is just, FIFA is the one that says 120 by 75 should be the standard for everyone.
How is that not like the biggest joke? You have three organizations thinking three different things. Like,
I don't know.
Like what?
Well, because one is the one that's supposed to make the rules on how the sport is played. The other one is one of the governing bodies that hosts the world's biggest tournament, does the awards and things like that. So they're not technically directly related. Like FIFA can't create new rules for the sport without the IFAB approving it. If that makes sense.
Can you imagine watching a World Cup 120 by 100?
Yeah, I mean.
Like who?
You'd have to play, honestly, you'd have to play 13 versus 13 on that field.
Yeah.
So, fun facts. These aren't any. You can turn your thinking caps off now. You guys don't have to think hard. I don't want you to hurt yourselves.
It is getting late.
It's getting late. Fun facts. So, the center line, all right, the half field line at the Macapá Brazil Stadium in Brazil is in the exact spot of the equator. So each team is actually in a different hemisphere than the other while they're playing the match.
That's that one. Awesome. What city is that?
I don't know. Is Macapá a city or is that just the name of the stadium?
I'll look it up.
It's in Brazil.
The stadium.
Right. Sit that half.
You want a fun fact about me with Brazil? I've been to the Maracanã. I saw Messi score there. Went there for the World Cup.
Memories. Big memories, huh?
Oh.
You don't forget moments like that?
Who's Messi?
He's almost as good as your boy Darwin.
Almost.
What
was it called?
Macapá. MACAPA.
It's a city.
Yep.
Nice.
That's pretty cool.
Google's telling me it's only a 1 day and 13-hour trip from Detroit.
Yeah. Walking?
Via plane. That doesn't make any sense.
All right. And then maybe I can ask multiple fun facts. Why not? Because we're here late anyway. And I'll ask this as a question. Do you know which country has the biggest football stadium in the world, and what its seating capacity is?
In terms of most seats? Currently today,
as of a couple hours ago that I Googled it, yes.
So it could have changed.
It used to be the
Estadio. A couple of hours ago that I got off the phone with Georgie's uncle.
When we were supposed to start shooting the podcast.
Yeah.
Wait, football stadium is in...
Specific.
Football, yeah.
Soccer, yeah.
Okay.
Soccer specific, football specific, whatever you want to call it, stadium. And it is
Football-
not. And it
football
is not liquid.
specific.
It is not liquid football. By the way, it is not liquid football.
You know what? I am going to actually answer Estadio Azteca because the other one I believe is in the Middle East, and I don't know if it's football specific.
Nope.
Damn.
Estadio Azteca is a big one, but I don't think it's even that.
It's 100
that
and
close.
to 110,000 or so.
I think there's a couple.
I've been there, too.
I think there's a couple in Brazil that are bigger even than that.
In Brazil?
Maracana,
I
I
think
believe, is
the
the biggest in Brazil.
Yeah, I think Maracana is the bigger one.
I have no idea.
You're never gonna guess the country. It's a weird country.
It's like
for them to
UAE.
have
Is it
the-
UAE or something?
What continent?
Asia?
He doesn't even know.
Asia.
Yeah. Singapore? Thailand? China?
Japan.
Nope.
No.
You give up?
Yeah.
North Korea.
North Korea.
Oh, you got it, George. You got it. North Korea. Now, can you guess the stadium
No
seating capacity?
125,000.
Don't Google it, Joe.
I'm not. I just guessed 120. I'm still on Macapa. 125,000 is my answer.
130 is my answer.
150,000.
That's
What?
absolutely
is the seating
insanity.
capacity of the center. Rungrado, 1st of May. Rungrado, 1st of May, stadium in North Korea. 150,000.
That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy.
That's 3 times the Liverpool Stadium.
Is it? Is it Liverpool 50?
Around there. Yeah.
Imagine that. So
That's
imagine
crazy.
imagine Anfield times 3.
That's
It's the
Well,
biggest
I imagine that
stadium in
stadium's
the
never
world.
got past like 10,000.
Yeah, that's why I said it's a weird country for them
Yeah.
to have the biggest stadium ever, right?
it is very, very weird.
Anyways,
What,
I,
what
think
I
that's-
wonder what they built it. Now I'm interested. Like, what did they build it for?
I don't know. I want to see some pictures. I didn't even
Here.
look at the pictures.
It's
Listen.
wild. Look at that.
We missed something huge.
What did we miss?
That it? There's no real pictures. It's all like 3D. This
Those are real people, I think. AI's getting good, man.
Sin bin.
Oh, don't even.
We talked a little bit about it on the last podcast. The
Not
10
about
minute sin bin.
sin bin.
We talked. It's the
Yeah,
orange
we
card.
did. Yeah.
That's what it
Well,
is.
orange card, but like.
That's
now-
what the sin bin is. The
But then
orange
like
card.
10 minutes later, like 2 days later, it came out.
Yeah.
Because then like they're actually trying this. What a load of shit that is.
The sin bin.
Yeah.
So
I would almost argue Javi's crappy idea earlier was better with the America's Got Talent
the part that I'm
judges.
confused. The part that I'm confused about with the sin bin is, so what is the progression of cards then? Because that's an orange card. So for anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, George is talking about the new rule change that they're implementing, or sorry, not implementing, testing, which is now there's an orange card, and if you get an orange card for like reckless tackles, dangerous behavior, whatever,
Tactical fouls, I do think,
Tactical
right?
fouls.
Yeah, so
and dissent.
okay, so sorry,
and dissent. So,
I'm wrong.
It pretty
So
much
I'm
is
wrong.
just anything you would get a yellow for. It seems.
But
like.
no. There's no. I read that it was only 4 tactical fouls.
Okay.
And dissent. Not no.
So
nothing about
regardless
reckless.
of what it's for, you have to sit out 10 minutes before you can come back in.
And your team plays down a man, obviously, when that happens.
And your team plays down a man. So my question, I guess, is what is the natural progression of cards? Do you get a yellow and then an orange and then a red? Do you still get 2 yellows and then a red and the orange is just kind of only for those 2 things? What if you get 2 oranges?
It seems like an orange is
that,
like
is that a maroon?
It sounds like an orange is just a yellow card, but the additional penalty is the 10 minutes you sit. So you'd need 2. You could get a yellow and an orange and you'd be off. You could get 2 oranges and be off.
Are we playing high school soccer now?
I have
or,
no
like,
idea.
What's going on? Look, why are we?
Arsene Wenger.
This is so.
Doing his research.
Is this him? Is this Arsene Wenger?
I don't know if it's Arsene
Pushing
Wenger,
this one?
but
I'm just going to credit everything to Arsene Wenger. Any crazy idea to Arsene Wenger.
That is so stupid.
Yeah. I'm not
Like
a fan of that.
there's. I mean, how did the rule that everybody was so excited about dissent? You cannot wave your hand like this for a yellow card. Oh, that would work great for the first game of the season, and then
Yeah.
we haven't.
Well, everybody does it.
No, they're still giving a lot of cards for it, but it is inconsistent. Not everyone gets
when
one.
everybody circles the ref and does that, the ref's not going to give everyone a card, right?
well,
And also,
Then don't make the rule.
like it's not fair to give it to one and then not to give it to the other 10.
I'd be interested, but they said that they were going to try. They could even trial this as early as the next season in the Premier League.
Oh, I didn't read that.
It said that
No,
they,
no
if-
way
In the Premier League?
yeah, they said as early as next
They
season
do
in
that.
the Premier League.
They do that in from 6 to 9 years old in England. That's in Wales supposedly, and a lot of the people are happy.
Yeah, but you can't. It's like
that's completely different.
It's like testing mice for like cures for things, and then saying, okay, it's good to be tested with humans. Like it doesn't work that way.
And I do get it for that age, but you want to take that away in terms of it's not about winning there. It's about teaching them how to be better people,
how to talk to the
humans,
referees and their coaches and stuff. Yeah.
However, you can't do that to and only your captain. Like, what happens if the goalkeeper's your captain? The guy's gonna sprint 50 yards to talk about something.
Yeah, that's another good one, right?
Like, there's just too many things. Like,
what would happen? What would happen in that scenario if the goalkeeper got the orange card?
Yeah, so that's what George is saying. Like, what?
Then then you have to have a field player go on goal for 10 minutes.
Like, we're adding all these rules and we can't take care of the rules we have. It's just a joke at this point.
I agree with you on that. Hopefully
so before the podcast, George told me that was a great idea.
Change his tune.
And now it's just getting late and he's lost the plot.
It was actually my idea.
So we'll see what happens. I'm gonna do some more research on that one, see where they've implemented, because I believe they've already have somewhere. So where they've implemented and what the results are.
Can you imagine Gattuso playing? Like, how many orange cards does he have?
He'd be for sure sitting out 20 minutes
I think
a game.
people don't realize the effect that it'll probably have on a game. Mm-hmm. Like that's another thing that I don't like is the accumulation of yellow cards. I think that rule is stupid because there's some tournaments where 3 yellow cards is accumulation,
Cup,
and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
They did it resets now at the semifinal, which is nice because I still remember back when Ballack had to miss the German final, when he had, because you get like 2 yellows in group play, or 1 in group play, 1 in the round of 16 and 1 in the semi, because that's a lot of games and it's not that many yellow cards over that many games, and then you miss a World Cup final, like that's pretty. For me, pretty tough, but
they don't realize how easy a yellow card can be given at that level.
Yeah.
So when you look at some of the yellow cards that they get, it is absolutely not enough for what they've done to have them sit out for such an important match in a tournament like that.
Yep. I'd agree with you on that.
Because most teams
they reset now after the group stage? I think they do.
I don't think there should be any accumulation. I think the only way you can do that is do it in like the Premier League, not in a World Cup where you only get 7 games. Do it in like a Premier League where out of 30, what do you get, 38 games?
38 games, yeah.
So out of 38 games, let's say you get 15 yellow cards.
Well, right now it's what, 5?
Yeah, it's every 5 you have to sit some games.
How easy it is to get a yellow card these days, I don't think that makes any sense.
Also for Simbin, thinking about this, what's a tactical foul? Again, now, like, we can't call an offside, right?
So you want to make up more.
But now we're going to think about, as referees, you're going to say, what's a tactical foul?
I think a tactical foul is clearer to see than the penalty ones.
Yeah, but some of it's like, well, was it really a counterattack? Was it not? And then you're opening up another gray area, because there are some where it's a clear tactical foul, and others are like, he was kind of making a play on the ball, though.
It's gray area everywhere in this sport. It's gray area. You know what? Let me finish the podcast by saying this.
They should vote on that too.
No. This is when people ask why this is the best sport in the world. I have the answer. All right. The answer is this. This is the only sport in which there is the perfect amount of rules and limits and freedom and creativity. Mm-hmm. In any other sport in the world, the balance is not right. For me, most of the other sports there's too many rules. You think about American football. Everything is drawn out on plays. You get roughly 6 seconds. And if you think about American football, what new trick or technique or style of play or anything like that can be created? Probably not that much. Not anymore. You've seen everything that you've ever seen in American football in terms of what people can do individually. Basketball, same thing. You're almost very baseball even worse, because baseball you're watching the same thing repeat over nine innings. The same 3 things happen over 9 innings or whatever. Soccer / football, you still see new things to this day that you've never seen before. There's still new tricks, new styles of play, new ways to watch the game, new ways to play the game that shows you that there's just enough gray area to be able to create and have the freedom, while at the same time it not being a complete free-for-all that gets boring because it's just complete anarchy. And the amount of rules and things that they have in place, allow the creativity and the freedom to flow. Yeah. So it's almost like there's new emotions that there still hasn't been found because of the things that players and teams are still able to do and still able to create. The problem is now we're starting to get to a point where, because of all these rule changes, because of VAR, I wonder if we're getting closer and closer to getting away from that in terms of the world sport versus other sports.
Yeah, I'd agree with that last part. I really agree with the whole thing you said. And the more I think that America adopts soccer or football, that the more it will get to what you're saying from a rules standpoint, because you're going to have more and more money coming into it. And then that PSG Newcastle handball, it could cost Newcastle tens of millions of dollars. The difference between advancing from the group stage and not, because winning that game, now they only need a draw to get through, but now they need to win and get help. That I could absolutely see more and more rules, sadly, getting implemented that take away from because as much as it does suck when it happens to your team, part of the beauty of the game is that it isn't perfect, just like life isn't perfect, just like people aren't perfect, and that's really like why you love your kids, because like you love them even though they're not perfect. Why you love your spouse, because even though they're not perfect. So it's a great call out, Javi. That was good. When we're shooting a podcast at 1 a.m, you come up with some good stuff, man.
You mentioned it with like the hand of God, the Maradona hand of God. That was a situation that, even though it wasn't perfect, it created one of the greatest moments in the sport, in the history of the sport. For me, I just think of things like in American football, you can't have custom cleats. Like you can't. Have you seen that when they do like?
Yeah, you get fined.
You get fined. Mm-hmm. You do celebrations, you get fined. And if they ever start fining people or start like straight up red, I understand some of them like that. You can't take off your shirt because that was I get it. There's certain things that you can't do, but for the most part, you have the creative ability or freedom to express yourself after a goal is. Mm-hmm. So people are creating new celebrations all the time. People are dancing. In baseball, and the baseball people are going to hate me for this, but in baseball, if a guy flips his bat after he scores a home run, the entire world wants to like find out where that guy lives, because it's the most disrespectful thing you can do in baseball, to flip your bat after you score a goal. Think about or hit a home run. Sorry. Mm-hmm. So think about that. If we got to that point where if you did a knee slide, the whole world would be up in arms of doing a knee slide after you scored a goal. So like that's one of the things that I'm talking about, but also again, just the amount of rules that they've put in place right now is perfect for the amount of creativity and freedom that they can still give to the players and the teams and the managers to create new things.
I mean, I can't even celebrate a goal these days. So,
well, you don't score. So
talk about Liverpool, boy. Like you can't.
Oh, because of you don't want to celebrate until after VAR's viewed it.
We're starting to get away from that, right? And that was one of the biggest criticisms of VAR.
Game's gone, man.
Well,
no. Oh,
what do you
got? One more thing.
You got one more thing.
Yep. Dana White. Did you get? I don't know how long this video, how like long ago it was, or how recent it is. Dana White said soccer's the worst sport in the world because how the athletes have no talent at all, because you have a big ass goal and the score is only 1 or 2-0. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
You know what's funny?
Do you know how stupid that sounds? One, if you score 1 goal, that's the equivalent of a fucking touchdown. So technically it can be 7-0, it can be 50, it can be 100.
Right, so you can just say a goal is worth 6 points now.
Yeah. So that's one. Two, Dana White. Do you not realize?
Listen, don't call out Dana White, all right?
No,
I don't want you calling out Dana White.
Look, do you not understand? Like, you talking about a big goal. The NFL has the whole damn field like get past that line and score. It's not like a little goal.
You know what's funny about that though? You know Joe Rogan, who is also big into MMA and the UFC. He's a commentator. and he's got a podcast slightly better than ours. Just slightly
bit.
better.
A few 100 million.
He
followers.
actually went to a game in Austin, I believe, or one of the like an MLS game.
Yeah, Austin FC now. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he went to a game and he talked about it on his podcast and he gave credits to the players. And he's like, "Have you ever been to a soccer match?" He's talking to one of the guys. He's like, "You ever been to a soccer match?" He's like, "It is fucking impressive how fit those guys are." He's like that. He's like unbelievable how much they're running, how fast they're running, and how long they're running for. So Dana White was talking about he was encouraging the person that he was talking to go watch a game because he thought it was very impressive.
I've heard that about Rogan. I hadn't heard that about Dana White, but I could see Dana White. I could see Dana White saying something like that.
I went in the comment section.
Oh, I bet you did. Georgie loves the comment section.
I went in those comments.
Georgie does love the
I
comment
really
section.
want to go see Georgie's keyboard at his house and see how like those keys are all just straight worn. It's just a black piece of plastic. You can't tell what key's what.
It makes that argument literally makes 0 sense of everything he's saying there. There's no talent because the games are low scoring. He's like, our game finishes 3-1. I'm supposed to be happy about that? Bro, a game finishes 21-14 here and you're all excited.
It just proves he doesn't understand it because I watch a lot of UFC. I shouldn't say a lot of UFC, so let me calm down there. I watch UFC often, and if you don't watch UFC, sometimes the most exciting UFC matches and like the actual best ones, if you watch it, not much really happens because both fighters are so good.
It's strategy,
like when you
right?
really have the top fighters, those fights normally take a few rounds to get rolling sometimes just because everyone's feeling it out. And you are, to your point, like there's a lot of strategy that goes into that. So
unless you're my boy,
you're not going to be able to convince everyone to like the sport.
No.
Yeah, but
there's always going to be the critics and there's always going to be, but there's a reason why it is universally accepted as the world sport. I was just trying to define it.
You did well.
I think that's why.
Dana White, you want to come on this podcast and sit right here?
I would, if Dana White comes onto this podcast,
You
I will
will
kick
agree.
you out of it. I would kick you out of it.
Yeah, Dana, you get the king chair.
Dana
You
White
sit
gets the
right
king
there.
You would agree. You would agree with him if he said that right here in front of you.
Absolutely. So you can
You're
give me
so
some tickets to an upcoming UFC fight.
Yeah, I don't think he would agree with that.
At least I can respect Dana White. Because at least he speaks openly. Nowadays, it's very difficult for people to speak openly.
I speak openly.
That is
all the time.
That is actually one of the best parts about Dana White. He will say what he means, and he means what he says, and you can't be mad at him for that.
We have absolutely lost the plot.
What are we, 3 hours in?
Wait, I got one more thing. No, I don't. I still have Ritz.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, for the last time, please follow us on the TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, even Facebook. I haven't posted on there in a while, but I'll post on the Facebook. And Georgie's supposed to be starting the Twitter soon.
I did start a Twitter.
He posted one tweet.
The Cowboys won.
Remember when I told you not to worry?
That's the end of this podcast, everyone. Thank you very much. We'll catch you in the next one.
Wait.
No, I'm at the end
No,
of the podcast.
no, you're not.
This is easy to cut out.
No. No, I'm going on TikTok to see where our videos at.
What was the final score of that game?
We're not religiously checking our TikTok views at all.
79.7K on the last video.
No way.
Is that considered viral?
79.8. Sorry,
No.
I just refreshed.
Oh, you have to get to a few million considered viral.
Peace out.
We'll get there.